Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome everybody to the Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri Foundation Uncommon Dialogue between Haider Mehdi and Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri. Today, these two luminaries will be speaking about the path to fulfillment. Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Salam.
Thank you very much, Sheikhna. Thank you very much for your time and your insight. Mona, thank you very much. Mona, you humble me. There is no way that you can equate me with the great Sheikh, but I will take that as a compliment and move on. Sheikhna, I'm going to start with a very basic question, and please ignore my ignorance. You've always said that, there is no two, there is no I, there is no we, there is only one, that's Allah, the divine light within us. But when we look at the world and we see all of us all struggling in our petty little ways and trying to navigate through life, whether we are Muslims or Jews or Christians or Hindus or whatever belief system we may come from, or even if there is no belief system and we really don't believe that there is a divine light that created us and there is no creator, is there a universal message that you have that allows everyone to live what we could call a fulfilled life?
I'd like to correct what you had mentioned, because it is according to the specific occasion. But there is everything. Whatever occurs, it has occurred, and there is some reality to it. So there is the I, and there is the me, and there is the angry, and there is the disappointed, and there is the sleeper, and there is the wakeful, and all of these do exist, but they are temporary. So occasionally one may have said, I may have said, these things don't exist. It's an exaggeration trying to imply that they have no durability. They're all passing states, or passing some sort of a wave state. So there's no long-lasting reality to anything that is within space and time. And all of what we experience and live and are appointed, disappointed, happy, unhappy, they're within space and time. So you can't say after 3 months of misery or pain that there was no pain. But once you have recovered fully with the amazing, perfect ways of nature, you may even forget that pain. Can't even remember. They say you were screaming, we can give you a recording of it. You say, oh, that's really me. So who is the real you? The question is that there are actually 5 questions that are fundamental. One is who is the me? Who am I? I'm asleep, I'm awake, I'm appointed, I'm disappointed, I lie, I'm truthful, I face myself, I feel unwanted, I love to be wanted, and who is this I? Then you have, where did I come from? How did it begin? What about the universe? Where does it end? And why is it there? And what am I to do? What's my purpose in life? And then we come to a major issue of a drive in each one of us to be fulfilled, to be content, the way to fulfillment, contentment, happiness. How can I get there? The question cannot be resolved because I start with the I. How can I? Who is the I? So that's what I'd like to share with you for a few minutes. The human I, or any entity that is aware of itself, is a composite energy field, which also brings about material, chemical, physical fields as well. So there is a source of life, which is most mysterious. Once a life touches anything, it brings about a return loop upon itself. Life begets life. Life acknowledges life. So once I'm alive, you think of the 2-month-old child, and then the 1 year, and then the 3 year, and then the 7-8 year, and then the early teenage, and on and on. You're all saying I. Everybody loves the I, everybody loves themselves. But who is the self? It has moved from being a wandering 1-month-old, occasionally sneezing or crying, to a very ambitious 25-year-old, and on and on. Who is it? It's a simple composition between the power of life that is not subject to space and time, is boundless, infinite, eternal, touches an earthly, if you like, state, an earthly situation, and produces this hybrid, earthly, heavenly. I was born at a certain day, and the so-called I, which is really, in this case, mainly body and mind, leaves me at a certain time. So is that the end of it? Why do we long for posterity? Why is it when you are happy, you want it to last forever? Why is it that you like to leave something for posterity? Why is it that we like to look into the oldest anything that existed before time? And why is it we also want to know what is thereafter? We're all driven to have the best of destinies. That's what hope is that tomorrow may be better than today. We are driven by that. So who is the we? Essentially, the power in it is from the Ruh. The Ruh is divine and is not subject to space and time, but it is functioning within space and time, which is me. So my Ruh, which is eternal, is imprisoned within this body. And that is why there is no contentment for anyone unless you're able to stop the profile of who you thought you were. That's why we love deep sleep. That's why we like anything that takes us away from the so-called I. Drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever that makes you forget the so-called I is desirable, because the real you is beyond any of these, but enables these human identities, which are billions. The identity of you running, sitting, counseling, talking, expressing sympathy, etc., etc. How many of them are you? Which is the real you? These are different facets of the real you, which is infinite light, caught in a worldly setup with genetic imprints, which has been practicing itself for billions of years, produces the so-called I. So once I've accepted this sketch that I am truly earthly and heavenly, in essence, a heavenly, if you like, light that is originally, essentially, is divine, caught in all of the earthly entities, including all the elements which are in each one of us, just about 100 elements. Each one of them does exist to a small amount within the human body. So is that all? No. I have other thoughts, other ambitions. I like music. I like to transcend. I like to go beyond the limitations, pushing the boundaries, making your impact. All of this means that you are driven by a subtle force that is not easily definable. It is your soul, your spirit, your ruh. So essentially, the drive in life is to be more and more as your soul and live as a soul with something on its back, the so-called you. Usually it is the reverse. Everybody is me, me, nobody knows what they are talking about, but occasionally they say, oh, really? Oh, I am a soul. So our life is topsy-turvy. If you want to see the world for what it is, stand on your head and you see it correctly. Everybody is upside down. Really. It's ludicrous. Everybody's chasing some illusions and fantasies. All what you need is to maintain a decent equilibrium for your body, some shelter, some clothing, and some food, and some rest. And that's all. But look what we have done. Look at the amount of excess waste we have in this world and the deprivation of the poor, it's ludicrous. And we say, where is justice? We're perpetrating the worst depth and breadth of injustice. So who am I? It is this. I repeat that this is what I've heard, what I've read, what religions taught me, or what a guru or somebody enlightened. I am a divine light, but experiencing through the senses, changing, moving, earthly situations. So then the next day, where did I come from? I don't know, from the unseen. My parents didn't ask me when I was being conceived. Nobody else talked to me. Nor do I think I'll be asked the moment I'm being liberated from my body. So where are we going to? We hope it will not be too bad. I had enough in this world. I hope the next world was not going to be as, if you like, treacherous, and so on. Hope. And then what do I want? I want to have access within me to a state that is beyond good and bad. Just bliss. I want joy, not pleasure, which also brings about displeasure. I want unconditional delight, not subject to any definition. So this is the whole story. And the rest one has to live it. But for that, you need others who are like-minded, like-hearted. That's why you can't do it entirely on your own. You want reflectors who reconfirm it, because there will be many occasions in which you are very disappointed, very angry, very despondent, this and that. So you need somebody to tell you, all right, you are in a state now. Have a nice meal and go to sleep, and I'll see you in 2 days' time, or next year, or whatever. So these are moods that come and go. What we need is a mode that we can always refer to, and we are recalibrating. So each one of us is a divine entity given a spark from the essence of life itself. God himself says, I blew into you from me. So that's why it is sacred. That's why the Quran says, we inspire the people of Israel that if you kill one person, you have killed the whole of creation. We are all the same. This is the foundation of justice. Each one of us is the same in potential, in essence. So if you don't respect others, you're not respecting yourself. Because in truth, there is no otherness. There is oneness prevails over the whole cosmos, not just a universe or two or the multiverse. Wherever you turn, there is a trace of the divine presence. Once you know that, then you live a most amazing life. And whatever comes to you, you attribute it to the source. It may have come from somebody passing by, somebody next door make noise, but how did he get the energy from to make noise? All of it emanates from the same source. That is the universality of reality.
Shaykh, this brings to this question of when we look around us and we see the rampant evil and corruption and immorality and injustice, as you said, and arrogance and violence and hypocrisy, and the pursuit of unbounded wealth, power, base physical pleasure, etc. They seem to be in the ascendant in the universe and also in history. So how with this filth, as so to speak, around us, how can we as individuals avoid these traps and these pitfalls and these obstacles and the lures that stops us from accessing the divine light within us?
I disagree with you entirely.
Thank you.
I agree. If you look at it in specific situation and incidents, there is a lot of corruption because the human nature, by its duality, one side of it is corrupt and decadent, and the other side of it is light upon light. So we are each is a mixture. Mm-hmm. But I'll give you 100 examples of how things are better now than they were 50 years ago. much, much, much better than 100 years ago. In an area where I am living here, 200 years ago, people passed through and cannibalism was rife. There were chiefs here not long ago that could do anything they wanted. Anybody could be killed at any time. Times now are better than ever. Because we are all more organized, because information goes about quickly and so on. So corruption, decadence, abuse, lies are all there, but they become now smack in our face. That's what is the difference. So this is a great progress. Evolution is that life began few billions of years ago as a tiny little self-aware, aware. And look at it now, how complex, how wonderful. Look at all the creatures around us. Look at the flora, the fauna, up and the down, and our knowledge of what is higher up, beyond us in the galactic, myths, is fantastic. So these, what you mentioned, terrible corruption, decadence, have to be in a way curbed by us individuals asking for it, demanding it, pointing fingers, and not accepting it. But because you want to get on and you find there is an obstacle, the fellow wants to be bribed, so you take a shortcut, say, look, it's not my job, so you bribe. So it will change. I think we are going through a very dark period in the sense that all of the worst aspects of humanity that humiliates the human potential are more and more and more evident, also because news always seeks the worst. Why is that?
Correct.
From long time ago, from before, if you like, even writing, news was always about danger, because our main obsession is with survival. So what is the news? Oh, we saw some strange creatures the other side of the river with some amazing animals with them, and we don't know what they're going to do with us. News is always implied regarding danger and survival. Same thing with our today. You only hear the bad news. Which newspaper is printing out some poor family donated half of their food to the neighbors because they lost their water? Where do you hear that? So, oh, this is not interesting. The interesting thing is when there is big thievery, big this. No, we have, because of the need to safeguard for survival, we always have our ears perking up when there's bad news, danger, somebody stealing. Oh, there's more COVID. Then your neighbors have got COVID. It's in our nature because we are obsessed with life. And life appears to us as survival. It's my life. Until such time I realize that this is what I'm obsessed with. It's not mine. I belong to it. In fact, the I is an illusion, a fantasy of my own mind. So life itself is forever. And if my life is not mine, I belong to it, then my essence is forever. So what's the problem? Celebrate when somebody dies. He's relieved or she is relieved from more drudgery. Really? And look at these stupid states and look at these miserable heads of states. They keep prolonging their life so that they suffer more here. I think they're doing God's work, because when they die, when they leave their body, they are into hell, which is perpetual suffering. That's how it is. Wonderful.
Sheikh, yes, please.
Our drive is to be content, to be at ease, to be leisurely, not to be caught into the wheels of product. We've all ended up being enslaved to a machination that we also like to have it. Whereas in the old days, a slave didn't want to be a slave. But now these people are slaves of a salary. He or she hates the work, hates the people in it, dislike the boss. They're all the time having migraine and this and that, and have to be put on antidepressant. But what they want money. Why they want money? To have comfort and ease. But where does it stop? Never ends. Nobody says, no, thank you, I have enough. I've got a good shelter somewhere. Until they can't go anywhere, and suddenly for 4 or 5 months, they're facing wardrobes full of rubbish clothes. So there you are.
Shaykh, two questions come from this. One is that there is, I agree with you that there is, the divine light seems to be in ascendance, as you pointed out. And we also see people who do not believe in a belief system of any form, shape, or the other, which says, oh, there is a creator, we were created, and then, there was a divine light in us. Yet they are people, these people are extremely moral, extremely ethical, good people, just, honest, persons of integrity. So how does that happen?
So don't forget, there's been a big evolution, especially if you look at the last 10,000 years. How were people 5,000 years ago? Look at the warfare in the Middle East between the Assyrians and the others, and what happened also in North Africa and Egypt, higher and lower, and on and on and on. They were all whimsical. And people wanted to have a king or a ruler who was like God on earth. The divine right of kings, if you like, can be traced to that. So we have one pharaoh who has everything. Everything he touches is gold or this. So I am poor and impoverished and dying of disease, but we have a pharaoh. So I am pleased because I can associate with them. On and on and on. So then at that time, fear of God and strict, if you like, boundaries of ethics, moralities, and so on, as prescribed by hundreds, if not thousands, of so-called prophets and messengers, was needed. But now it is moving to another zone, that I act not by fear, by personal, if you like, drive towards light and delight on an ongoing basis. So if I want goodness on an ongoing basis, it isn't anymore morality or ethics or religion that is pushing me to that. It's myself. I don't want to regrets. I don't want to have fear. I don't want to have anything filling my heart. Because if my heart is full of debris, then the light of my own soul, which is in the heart, will not shine, will not show me the path. So I want morality, ethics, clarity, honesty for my own sake. In the past, it was for God's sake. Do it because of other, or neighbors, or parents. It has moved to a much higher level. And also, don't forget, 200 years ago, how many Qur'ans were there by percentage of so-called Muslim households? Take a guess.
Barely any.
200 years. How many?
Barely any, Shaykh. Maybe 1%.
Exactly. Maybe much less. Who had even the time? They'll be tilling the field, and by the time the sun goes down, they're tired and exhausted, and they get back. And the average age may not have been even 35. So it is like that. But look at us now. We have reliable food supply. We have this, we have that. Famines between 100 years ago and 400 years ago were one of the most frequent phenomena. Not now, with all such a huge rising population. Now, things are moving in an evolutionary sense to enable us to have space and time. But because of the huge drive of commercialization and the so-called leading and misleading civilization towards more. Fancy dress. Every half hour, every 2-3 hours, they have to redress, change their dress, because now I'm going to the board meeting. Now I'm going to play golf. Now I'm going. How many dresses do you have? It's ludicrous. I mean, it is not just laughable, you have to cry for it, because we're being misled. But if you want to be part of the modern civilization, you have to be. It's changing, because there are many more, the majority of very wealthy people who have made wealth in a short period of time are below the age of 40. Therefore, there is hope. And they don't give a damn. because he has money, because nobody can, you know. The other day I had a story that there was a very pompous board meeting, and this fellow who was content with himself and his own earning, he comes to it from a long flight with slippers. So this very senior banker looks at him and says, "You are very relaxed." He said, "Yes, because I'm working very hard, so I have to be relaxed, unlike you." End of conversation. It's changing, but on the surface, it's terrible. As you said, a lot of lies and corruption and so on. But like everything, is cyclical. It will increase, and then like a balloon, it will fizzle in one way or the other. I'm not saying that tomorrow you have nirvana on earth. No. The earth remains, if you like, an area where the good and the bad are constantly oscillating, vibrating, reflecting. But if you look at it in a macro sense, in big history, over the last 5,000 years, you think you will see with evidence is better and better and better and better, in the sense that if you want to wake up to higher consciousness, you can do it better now than 100 years ago. If you are after waking to full potential, to the inner light with no shadows on it, then this is as good a time as any.
Check 2 questions again, and this is big history. And I've been very intrigued by one concept that you, Claire, which you shared earlier in one of your talks, is that you compared quantum physics as that boundless, infinite construct with Newtonian physics, which were bound by time and space. So could you elaborate on that a bit, please?
Yes, I think modern new science will help a lot in spirituality. Religion had in its clear definitions of do's and don'ts and all of the other things that help people to maintain a reasonably stable community between people who are far, far less in number also. But now we have, if you like, the rise in spirituality will benefit a lot from modern physics, and especially the interplay between Newtonian physics, chemistry, biology that we live in, and the higher, if you like, aspects of energy fields, especially quantum mechanics. So in quantum mechanics, anything can happen anytime, anywhere, before even you can talk about time. So it's an amazing situation. That's why Feynman and many other great people in the early days of 20, 30, 40 years, they always defined it that if anybody tells you, I know quantum mechanics, run away from them, they don't know what they're talking about. Because how can you know it through your feeble mind? So we are living in this world, which is basically on the initial stage of mind, reason, intellect, is governed by causality. Cause and effect, up and down, high, low, air, gas, liquid, solid, and so on, and fire, and all of the other things, and all the elements, and they come into a molecule. But once you move into either the minutiae, tiny, 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 and then you say, oh, there is the atom. And it was very cozy 50 years ago. There was this atom, and like a football field, and in the center of it, there would be like a pea, and that is where the nucleus is. And around the whole football field, the electrons are running around. Very simplistic. But then it began to open up. The small, small, small scale was balanced by big, 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 big scale. This is what young people need to be taught, that it is infinite, beyond the mind to comprehend. You know, it's a very good exercise if you can train yourself to one day to become one molecule of water. And this one molecule evaporates. And this one molecule is taken across thousands of miles and then is subjected to a rain situation. It comes down as this tiny little molecule in a drop of water. But do you know how many molecules there are in a drop of water? 6 with 23 zeros in front of it.
Wow, wow, wow.
There are as many as that molecules in a drop of water. What are you talking about? We need to put things in perspective. That's why I liked the name of what you are giving your own activity. Perspective. Put it in perspective. As for the sizes beyond the beyond. And here we are, this tiny little human being on this tiny earth, creating havoc.
Shaykh, this is the question. This is the question I have to ask. You know, based on current knowledge of big history, we know, or we are told that the Big Bang happened 14 billion years ago. The Earth came into form shape 4 billion years ago. And then we have these trillions and trillions of galaxies and even concepts of multiverses, and each expanding at amazing trillions of millions of light years. And yet there is this tiny little thing called Ashraf al-Makhluqat, and who evolved from a single form, organ, to this complex, hypocritical, ambitious human being who thinks he or she understands the universe. I can't seem to understand this insignificance of our existence and the immense physical vastness of the universe.
Ashraf al-Makhluqat is not insan.
Aha.
It is ruh.
Wah, subhanallah.
Ashraf al-Makhluqat is insan. Baba, the Quran tells you repeatedly, and we created Adam, وَلَا نَجِدَ لَهُ عَزْمًا. And on and on and on. Insan is both the lowest of Haywan and the light of Rawhan. So which are you talking about?
Subhanallah.
So each one of us is a controversy in itself. Each one of us is a contradiction that is in battle. One is the lowest of animals, wants to devour everything, lie, hide, denounce. And the other one is light of lights, in which all the angels prostrated to. So what are you talking about, Ashraf? Have you met any one of them as Ashraf al-Makhluqat? I want to meet him, if you find one.
That is an amazing insight, Sheikh. Thank you.
But the potential is there.
Yes.
The potential, as long as there is life, then there is a divine presence there. I have to respect the divine presence. So and usually when it is missed, we understand. That's why you respect the person when he dies. When he's alive, he's full of rubbish. He lied, he stole, he did it. How can you respect him? But once he dies, everybody has to look somber and sober and talk about the good few points that they have experienced. No, he was very nice. He contributed 5 rupees to the school and then robbed the whole country from whatever. Because we like to revere. We are driven to be in reverence. Without reverence, we will not move across to the zone of higher consciousness, which is the source of lower consciousness.
Subhan. So, Sheikh, therefore, we do come from boundless, infinite, timeless, spaceless to a time-bound, time and space-bound construct. Then, if when we're here, what is the purpose? Why are we here?
Only to enter into a zone of total, pure, absolute, awesome realization of the awesomeness of light, of God, of truth, of reality, in order to be shared, in order to be given that gift of gifts, which is beyond measure in its amazing varieties, lights, colors, and all of that. That's why we are here on this earth, to experience all these things in a physical, literal, chemical, essence, smell, and all, until such time we have seen all the possible varieties, and then say enough. Now you can go back to a zone where there is no discernment, no discrimination of that's all potential in this amazing, if you like, state of light. So going back also to your original issue is that the human being is essentially alive because of a divine light, but it got mucked up, messed up with dust, with earth. So we are physically in earth, but we're earthbound by earth and water and all of the other sediments that comes with it. But it comes to life due to the divine light. It is the ultimate, if you like, miracle. So we have to ponder that miracle forever until you find, we are in amazement forever. But we reduced everything to material goods. How many houses, how many food, money and all. And instead of it becoming convenient for having an easy life, not spending all your day and night chasing after maintaining your body and mind together, it became an obsession. And that's happened really in the last few decades. 100 years ago, it was shameful even for Christians and others to accumulate much wealth. It was justified for them by saying, no, it's all right. We know Jesus didn't have anything. We know he loved the poor, but you can make money but build a cathedral. So it was very conveniently justified. So we are clever. We are clever beasties, worse than any beast. And if we leave that aside, then we are above angels.
But the challenge is that there is as you say, there is the shadow, the nafs, the dark, the shaitan, and then there is the ruh, the divine, the boundless, the infinite. And one had to have this nafs to be able to recognize the divine.
Once there is light, there is a shadow. Once there is a ruh, there will be a nafs. But what nafs? The nafs of a 6-year-old is give it to me. That's mine. I take the lollipop or whatever. But the 12-year-old now, I want to win. I want to win. I want my daddy to see me and clap for me. And I can go and show the cup to mommy or whatever. By the time you are in your 20s, you are every now and then get a smack or get something. So you begin to realize other people have also a nafs. Initially, your nafs, half of your life, causes you a lot of trouble because it imagines itself God, because it is the shadow of a ruh, and the ruh is boundless, it's divine. So the shadow thinks it is the same. So initially it is trouble, shaitan. But if you're fortunate, by the time you're in your 40s, 50s, your nafs becomes the best friend for you as a shaitan to warn you. Say, look here, if you come a bit further, I'm going to burn you, or I'm going to make you really fall down. So watch out. So initially, it is a warner and an enemy. Later on, it becomes a companion friend. Say, look, I am here to warn you. I'm here full of, dreadful fires. Everything has two sides, depending on the situation it is in. So when you realize your nafs serves its purpose and it is there sitting quietly, not upsetting, not interfering, so what's wrong? It served its purpose. It was wonderful. Made you from being a very base animal to awakening to the divine light in you.
And Sheikhna, so this monkey, as you have said in one of your talks, how does one quieten this monkey, this donkey? There is a hadith which says that the Prophet Muhammad said that, the shaitan attacks me 70 times a day. I don't know how far this is true, but assuming that, the message was that even he was, his nafs would also rise up time and time again. So how do we put it in a corner?
You don't. Awareness in the moment. Simple, total presence. Do your best and trust in the rest. It will do it itself. The monkeys do not come unless there is something they can steal. If there is nothing for them to steal, they don't waste their time. Even children, they don't do anything unless they know they can get at the parents and make them feel guilty and so on. There is super efficiency in the world. So it won't happen. because they know they can't get at you. Finished. So temptation is not there. But once you allow temptation in the name of culture, civilization, modernity, then you've had it. But once you, deep down in your own heart, you know you're not going to be moved or tempted, finish. It won't come to you.
And Sheikh, how does one, because that really is the heart and the crux of the matter in living this fulfilled life. How does it, and I want to use the phrase ordinary person in a just in a matter of fact, right? It doesn't mean anything, but ordinary mortals like us who are struggling with life, how do we quieten ourselves? How do we quieten the evil urges that come within us, the temptations from the nafs, and go into utter bliss in the moment, as you say?
It's all an issue of priorities.
Mhm.
Priority after priority, priority. What is really genuinely important? Think of yourself. If you have a call from the president, you're giving it all your attention because you respect and he respects you and so on. And then suddenly there is a parade of temptations. Some very beautiful, half semi-dressed woman passed by. Somebody's coming there with temptation with a new share that is going to make you immensely wealthy in 1 week. Somebody else coming this. A parade of all of these temptations. Would you listen to them? You're already caught into that conversation in a situation that you considered very important. So it is a question of the degree of importance you give to your inner state of bliss.
Wow.
That's all what it is. If you're obsessed with your own life, then nothing else will obsess you. But if you have a vacancy, everything can come and interfere.
It's like a vacuum. So, yes.
Precisely. In fact, you see, if you look at space and time where we are in, neither of them is true. That's why we fill all the space with everything, including garbage. Go to every home. The house was new 4 years ago. Go now to the garage and everywhere you go is full of rubbish. They fill the space with rubbish. We fill the earth with millions of tons of rubbish, of plastic. Time is the same. You fill the time. Most people say, I have no time. Run away from them. Only befriend those who said, I have all the time. I have nothing other than time. So what else is it? Oh, we are living in a most, if you like, undignified way that, if you like, the ruh, the soul deserves. So we are doing ourselves injustice. So the Quran repeatedly says, we don't wrong anybody. They wrong themselves through ignorance. That's it.
Sheikh, are there some? Is there a path? Is there a ladder? Is there a way? Are there any practices that we do salah, we pray 5 times a day, some of us, and yet we're constantly in the struggle. What is the shield that we can create around us?
Because most of the people who do the salat are described in the Quran. الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ. They're all distracted. Ask anybody from your friends. Tell them, where is their mind most agitated?
I swear, you're so right.
Most of the time when they really, or when you want to sleep, you suddenly remember you left that on this.
Yes.
Because we are not present. You're not, as the Quran says, it's about those who are perpetually in their salah. الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ دَائِمُونَ. Any minute you go into your prostration and lose yourself. Otherwise, you are not being recharged. It becomes a form, it becomes a ritual without much effect upon your entire system, on your cellular system. So it is the transformative part of ibadah that matters. When you do your wudu, when you do your salat, be aware that this may be, as Imam Ali teaches us, imagine it being the last thing you are doing. Will you regret it after death? The air goes in, may not come out. Be present, be real, be honest. You find you'll do less and less and less, and the effect upon you in goodness is more and more and more. Quality We've fallen into quantity because the immense rise in population in the world. 50 years ago, it was a third, a quarter of what it is now. Everybody wants the same. And so it's incredible how, in fact, resources and the ingenuity of human invention managed to cope so far. Outwardly, we are wealthier, better off than ever. But inwardly also, I think, in the majority of cases, you find we are more impoverished because we are preoccupied with the stuff. Where do you put it? Where have you put it? Where do you hide? On and on and on and on and on. Look at the potentates that you have in the East. Just list the last 50 years, 20 of the dictators and leaders, so-called the worst misleaders. How many homes and palaces did they build? Above ground, in ground. Where did they die? Just look at that. Make a list for us. Let's next time talk about that. Really, how homeless, miserable, destitute they died. It's not as you think. Things on the outer surface not always reflect the inner state, the inner reality. Lies upon lies upon lies, all facade, all appearances. But appearances for us as human beings ends up being very important. We are gullible. Look how wealthy is it. Look how much money this. The fellow for 2 years only gave $500-600 as income tax. Everybody wants to have that wealth. What wealth? We have to really be real in the full sense. Inner, the outer, the human, and the divine in us. Not denying anything. Take care of the human and the animal, but not all the time. Spending half of the time improving your looks or improving this or what? To what extent? Nature is against it. You're going to lose your hair. You're going to lose this. So up to a certain limit, we want to look all right, respectable. We don't want to be. No, we don't have a priority right. We're not obsessed with the biggest gift of all, eternal life of the one soul, which is already there with you.
So,
If that touches you, nothing else will obsess you.
So, Shaykh, doesn't this mean that we really have? I don't want to say the phrase "weak in faith," but we really don't actually believe that there is a divine light within us. We have heard people say that. We've never seen it. It never manifests. And because we really don't believe that there is something, then the nafs completely takes over all aspects of our life.
That's quite true, except that if belief doesn't lead to an experiential realization, then it's not complete.
Correct.
Then it remains, vague. Belief must lead to you and I to know for sure within me lies the light of God that will guide me. Otherwise, how will God guide me?
Exactly.
Will there be a sudden thunder I read on the clouds? He guides me from within myself. His light is within my own heart. But it has to be experienced. And for that, one needs to be amongst people who are living it. It's for that reason, so many people whom we know, there is hardly any respect or reverence. 50 years ago, you find most homes had some respect for the elderly, the older, the parents, and so on. But with education and greater knowledge, people began to discover that age doesn't mean higher, if you like, level of consciousness. It often is mean as decrepit and old. So that's why respect for the elderly has gone. Respect for people who know has gone, because you think Sheikh Google knows it all, and on and on. So we're no longer in any way interested in reverence until I know that I have to guard my heart. Because all what I have is that. My ultimate reference is that. So I become extra cautious not to tarnish it, not to fill it with hatred, fear, jealousy. Safeguard my heart. Because that is the way I access the light of God in me. That's it. Once you know that, then you move on that path from all within yourself by God's mercy. 200 years ago, this sort of discussion wouldn't have been possible. It was all based on you are here, God is there and maybe everywhere. You have to fear him, you have to win, otherwise you'll be punished. This ended in a way. Now it is hope. What drives the young people is to awaken to a treasure that is beyond measure. But how can you share it unless you have it? It becomes silly preaching. And nobody wants that. They want sharing. They want you to be a candle that they will light their candle from. Otherwise, just talk. Not interesting.
So, Sheikh, this ability to be constantly aware, so one can guard and then one can go deep into this moment, this present moment of infinite boundlessness. How does a ordinary person make himself or herself constantly aware every day, every moment of his living life or her living life?
What is the mechanism by the so-called ordinary person keeps on breathing? What is it? Why do they not stop breathing every now and then? They have to be reminding themselves, I now have to breathe.
It's completely
in our innate nature.
It's in our innate nature, yes.
Of course, you are present. Life is, in a way, is proved to you and I and everyone else due to an experience of presence. And that presence leads also to numerous other side effects: movement, action, talk, silence, rest, all of that. All of it is to do in the intensity of the moment.
Allah.
So the only thing what you are saying is that how can people be less distracted from the moment? Distraction brings suffering, and nobody wants to suffer. So it's a question of discipline. Stop suffering by yourself, from yourself. Be present. Don't do too many things because you are frustrated. So you think by having multitasking, you end up having no task. It's crazy. Just do the one thing at a time as though it's the last thing you are doing, and it becomes perfect, potentized. You enjoy it, and whoever is involved in it will enjoy it. It's about enjoy. We've become too frivolous.
Yes, Sheikh, you've that's wonderful. Thank you. And last question, Sheikh, you've often said, "Die before you die." Could you elaborate on that, please?
I didn't say that. I'm a mimic. It was attributed to the Prophet.
Yes.
It's that we all have a mind, and the mind is alive because of the soul, and the soul is cosmic. So the mind, which derives its energy from the cosmic light, inspires the body to drive and have ambition that are endless. So as Muhammad says, if you fill the biggest value on earth with gold to satisfy the greed or the need or the ambition of one person, it will not be enough. The nature of the lower self is such that nothing could satisfy it because its temporary life is from the origin which is boundless itself. So it's greed or nothing will satisfy me is due to the boundlessness of my own soul. So I will never be fully satisfied outwardly, ever. Until I refer it to the inner, I say, enough is enough. You have enough clothes, you have a shelter, you have one friend, it's enough. Then you do not become this abstention. That is a ritual that hopefully will become a habit. Ultimately, it will be from within your own soul that the limitations and the enough is enough will come to you. But you need to be able to hear it. If I am full of noise, my mind have been exposed to so many conflicting desires. I want to be good, and yet I want to live vulgarly. I want to do this. It's endless. So how can I hear that inner voice? Not possible. It requires discipline, commitment, faith and belief to begin with, taste and touch of the truth of it as you progress, and people around you who are already living it joyfully. And it's not dependent on you to approve or disapprove. So it's contagious. That's why also, as you said earlier, for example, corruption is contagious. Everybody's stealing, so how can I accept my miserable little salary? No. But if everybody also is sacrificing, giving their time, doing their best, it also becomes contagious. But the run towards the lower animal in us is easier because we have emerged from that over millions of years. It's slightly more difficult to say, no, thank you, I won't do it. But it may come. You may suddenly find in one or two or more countries in the world, it reverses. But we have been given the last few decades leaders who simply pretend to be correct and decent and so on, but it doesn't emanate from their inner. So there is hypocrisy. So that's why we don't trust anything anymore, whether it's news or anything. So that's why the world now is heading towards an exceptionally dark period because of misleading bad leaders. And that's it.
Shaykh, thank you very much. This has been most insightful, very kind of you. And like you said, it's you become what the company you keep. So it's like think good and say good and act good. And if you're surrounded by people like yourself, one hopes that one is able to seek the inner light.
But if there are no people, also be a friend with your own ruh, your own soul.
Allah.
It's the best of the best of the best. That's your soulmate. And then you are fortunate if you have few friends outside who are also decent and honest, and every now and then remind you of your lower tendency. That's fine. And laugh at it. And we have to have a pleasant time. We have to be cheerful in this life. Laugh at the lower self and enjoy the lights of the higher self. And it will come to you. As you are, you will be governed. As you are, also people will come to you. So if you truly live what you are teaching and preaching, then it will work. Otherwise, it will be yet another, remote voice or sound that doesn't help. Thank you very much. I enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you very much, Shaykh. Bismillah. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, Haider. Thank you very much, Shaykh Fadhlalla. Haider, thank you for eliciting these wonderful transformative insights from Shaykh Fadhlalla into this wonderful journey of being human and of finding fulfillment. Thank you so much. Bless you all. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for tuning in. Please do subscribe to SFH Foundation for notification of forthcoming videos and broadcasts.